Good evening, everyone. I'm Victor Valesky, Superintendent of Schools. On behalf of the entire Stankiewicz family, Hank, Liz, Henry, his wife Jenna, and their daughter Sierra, as well as School Board President Lori Lax, and our entire Board of Education, I welcome you to tonight's celebration of the life of Dr. Ann Magistro. I cannot stand before you and share a plethora of anecdotes about Joanne. If you compressed the entirety of our interpersonal relationships, it might add up to about a week. And even in that short duration of time, I got to know Joanne, and I got to see her in ways that many people did not. East Brunswick was not just a job for Joanne, and it wasn't just a career. It was her extended family. It was where she exercised her creative talents and her leadership skills. This very space, the JM PAC, is a testament to Joanne's vision and her tenacity to bring it to fruition. Joanne's and my first personal interaction was after my board level interviews were finished and they decided that I would be their choice as the next superintendent. By this time, Joanne was already retired, but that did not stop her from offering to visit my former school district and interview my former staff. I likened it to a parent interviewing their daughter's or son's first serious relationship. And Joanne was not about to hand off her baby to just anyone. She had invested over 4 decades into East Brunswick Public Schools. And I understood the importance of the transition in leadership. After my appointment to become the next East Brunswick superintendent was formalized, Joanne scheduled briefing day at hers and Hank's home. She had prepared binders, shared notes, stories, and lunch. Then at the conclusion of school business that day, Joanne shared stories of her family. Remarkably, Joanne and I spent time together this past spring. She asked if she could tour some schools and see what had changed over the past 11 years firsthand. And I said, of course, and we set a date. We toured some buildings and she walked across our new track, then on to the new football field turf with our new Bear logo. And I regret not taking pictures that day. Joanne remarked that so many people and so many things had changed, but I did not see it that way. Because Joanne, as part of her own vision, had prepared this organization to change. Then we drove back to the building where she worked for so many years, countless hours, countless evenings, even weekends. We sat in my car and she talked about her family. That was the Joanne I knew. Joanne had a love for all things EB, but she had an affinity for the arts department and fiercely devoted her time to ensuring the programs flourished during a time when other school districts were cutting their arts programs. Tonight you were greeted by the high school string quartet. To further honor Joanne, we have performances by 2 groups of stellar musicians from East Brunswick High School. Bella Voce under the direction of Mr. Adam Good, and our chamber orchestra under the direction of Dr. Alvin Gopel.
Good evening. I'm Danielle Ruggiero Hardish, depending on the day and the setting. I'm the retired Director of Human Resources. And I sitting here thinking that Joanne loved whenever we came together as a community, and surely she would love that we're all together tonight. We are going to hear from three very special people who have shared their sentiments with us. So let's watch and listen.
I'm really sorry that I couldn't be with everybody today as we have this wonderful celebration for the life and legacy of a good friend of mine, Dr. Ann Magistro, someone who gave many, many years to this community. I do want to thank Hank and Henry and Liz for giving me the opportunity to make some words and record them so that they could be played today at this celebration. First, when I think about Joanne, the quote that comes to my mind comes from Shakespeare, who said that the meaning of life is to find your gift, but the purpose of life is to give that gift away. And I think that sums up for me what I think about Joanne, a woman who had some unbelievable talents that she shared with this entire community. She was clearly someone who was extremely intelligent, but didn't have to show off. She was somebody who had an incredible sense of humility and purpose, and someone who I think displayed an incredible amount of compassion for those around her. And I think that's what made her such a superior educator in this community. She was a counselor for individuals who were less fortunate than her. She was able to contribute a lot to our special needs community by recognizing the needs of individuals and the importance of having them part of our community and not shipped off and sent out of district. That was a large part due to her commitment to that community. She was a counselor to those individuals who simply needed to find their direction and to refocus on what's important and be able to find their way and do it in a way that allowed people to figure out what their own passion really was. She was extremely demanding of those around her who she could count on, who she expected great things from. She had the ability to recognize that and to put people in a place where they could achieve their greatest goals. Her 40 years of achievement here in the township are marked by some unbelievable accomplishments. This includes, among many other things, her commitment to the security of our 11 buildings, of all of our students and staff that work in those buildings every single day. That started after Columbine, as working with the township to increase and put attention to the importance of security. I don't think she could ever have predicted that we're at a point today where that's so critical, but it is the reason that we remain the standard bearer of what security means for public school districts throughout the state. She was at the helm during most of the times when we were able to achieve our blue ribbon status. Something that's still mentioned today, is still the number one reason that people move to this township, is the quality of our schools. I think that there's a incredible amount of effort she put in after many years to finally achieving full day kindergarten here in the district. And she was incredibly supportive of the arts well before it was recognized that in order for the STEM, those science, technology, engineering, and mathematics areas, which we've always excelled in, but in order to be an innovator, you need to have that broad-based background that comes out of the creativity and innovation that comes from the arts. I think that what comes after somebody passing of such high stature is that you now start to think about, as that dust settles a little bit, about legacy. And what is it that she left behind? What was the gift of Dr. Ann Magistro? And if that gift comes in many forms. I do think that the building that we're sitting in today, that you're sitting in today, is a recognition of the contribution that Joanne gave in terms of her 40 years. It's an honor. That's not the legacy. The legacy comes from the students, the thousands and thousands of students that came through our school district and whose lives are so much better off for having interacted with Dr. Magistro. Whether it's the career they chose, the paths that they chose, all were directed by someone who really cared about them and guided them with compassion. I think you see it in the educators that work in our district. It's not just the knowledge that they have, it's being able to learn how to take that gift and to convert it into a way that affects and helps students to achieve their best. It's taking that talent and motivating it. It's working with the support staff that works in every one of our buildings and recognizing that they're not tangential to the outcomes that we achieve in this district. They're a critical part of a team that makes East Brunswick such a wonderful school district and one in which everybody has the opportunity to achieve greatness. The legacy also exists and continues in her family, Hank and Henry and Liz, who are all embodiments of a lifetime of Joanne's guidance. And I think finally for me, Joanne was just an incredible friend and a mentor. And I think that she has made me a better person. And I thank her for that. So on behalf of a really grateful community and a job well done and a life well served, I thank each and every one of you for being there today. And I thank you for including me in this wonderful tribute to an incredible person.
Good evening, all, and thank you for taking the time to celebrate a life well lived. As you all know, Joanne was a very special person who spent her whole life caring about other people, and her main goal in life from an early age was to be a teacher. Her cousins told me many times of early Joanne having them sit on the steps and pretending to teach. Anyway, life is the sum of your choices. That quote by Albert Carnes, a Nobel Prize novelist, epitomizes my wife Joanne's outlook on life. Her life choices were very wise, both professionally and privately, but the private ones meant the most to her. After all, she chose me to spend the rest of her life with, right? But her other choices were also monumental, as you will hear from the array of speakers to follow. Like most of us, she had two distinct lives, the professional one and the private one. I would like to talk about the private one. Joanne and I both worked at East Brunswick High School. I came there in 1975 as an industrial arts teacher, and she had already been there for a few years as a guidance counselor. The high school at the time consisted of several distinct buildings, each housing a different curricular area. And they all led through hallways to a main hub, the main office. And pretty much everyone stayed in their own area or building, and every now and then they would venture to the teacher's break room or the main office for mail, right? But all in all, they stayed mainly in their own buildings. I had been in East Brunswick for a few years and also pretty much stayed in the industrial arts complex as well. But one day, I ventured up to the main office to get the department mail. And as I got closer to the office, I stopped dead in my tracks and was absolutely stunned to see through the office window this absolutely gorgeous brunette standing at the counter talking to one of the secretaries. I hope no one saw me standing there with my mouth open looking like an idiot. Anyway, as I remember, she smiled at the secretary and left through the back door. I don't think I got the mail that day. The next day, and for several more after that, I ventured up to the office looking for another glimpse of that brunette, but to no avail. I finally figured she must have been a parent or someone who was just visiting, so I basically forgot about her. And anyway, I knew she was out of my league. A few weeks later, on my way to the office again, I spot her walking down the hall towards the gym. By the way, she looked as good walking away as she did from the front. I immediately went back to the industrial north office and cornered one of my single friends and asked, "Who is the gorgeous brunette I just saw walking out of the main office?" He laughs and says, "That's Joanne. She works in the guidance office, and forget what you're thinking. She's out of her league." He also says he made a few runs at her, and she finally told him she does not date people from work. I'm crushed and forget about her again. Fast forward several weeks, and one evening I'm in my class getting prepared to teach a brand new adult class called Motorcycle Repair, and in walks the gorgeous brunette. I'm stunned again, caught way off guard, and say something stupid like, "What are you doing here?" She laughs and says, "She's Ann Magistro, and she's here to take the class." Awkward. The class goes on for several weeks, and I keep remembering she doesn't date people from work, and she is out of my league. But I'm dying to ask her out, and on the last day of class, I get up the nerve and ask her if she might like to go out for a drink or something. And she says, "Absolutely, but under one condition, that no one ever know we ever went out." And that's how it started. We dated for well over a year, and no one at school ever knew. One day, I get brave and pop the question, and she said yes, and we were engaged to be married. We got married on August 10th, 1985, went on to have two absolutely beautiful children. Henry, who is a professor at Kane University, is married to a wonderful woman, Jenna, who runs her own photography business. And they have the most precious 2-year-old baby girl, Sierra Rain, who was the bright light in Joanne's eye. And Liz, our daughter, who seems to be following in her mother's footsteps so far. She started teaching at the elementary level in East Brunswick, earned her master's degree as a counselor, and now works in the counselor's office at Churchill School, and is in a wonderful relationship with Michael, her boyfriend. His 2 dogs. They love camping and just being together, and they are well on their way to a life together. And oh, by the way, remember I told you no one at school ever knew Joanne and I were dating? So on the first Monday back at school, we are at the weekly principals meeting after school. All the administrators from the high school are there, as well as department heads and supervisors throughout the district. The meeting goes on for an hour, and at the end, the principal asks if anyone has anything they'd like to share. Joanne raises her hand and she says, "I just want everyone to know I got engaged to be married over the weekend," and she holds up the diamond. Stunned silence. Then all hell breaks loose with congratulations, well wishes, hugs, and everybody is so happy for her. Finally, everything gets back to normal, and they are about to leave, and Joanne says, "Isn't anyone interested in knowing who I'm engaged to?" It's Hank Stankiewicz. Now, talk about stunned silence. The reason you're watching this video is there's no way I could have stood up and delivered this. Oh, one more thing. Years later, we're talking, and Joanne asks me if I knew the first time she saw me. I say no. She then tells me, "The first time I saw you, I was in the main office talking to a secretary, and out of the corner of my eye, I see this handsome blonde guy standing in the hallway." And right then I thought, wow, this guy's out of my league. She said she went back to her office and just couldn't work. She kept thinking about the blonde guy. She shuffled papers, looked at the mail, looked at notes, but just couldn't concentrate. She told me that she decided right then and there, I was the one. And that, my friends, is how it really started.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're enjoying your evening so far. Now, the reason why I'm not here tonight is because right now I'm in Iowa. I didn't realize that the event would be on this night until last month. So, yeah, it is what it is. When I heard about this, I decided to plan ahead and just read a speech I wrote about Joanne. Hope you guys enjoy it. There's so much about Dr. Joann Magistro, and so much that she is. A friend, a teacher, a superintendent, wife, mother, and grandmother. She had so many people who loved her for the kind and caring person that she was, and the supportive teacher that she had been known for throughout her extraordinary life. But for me, her story started a long time ago. This happened before any of you former students were born. This was the story where Dr. Joann Magistro Stankiewicz took in a young woman who was working as a certified nursing assistant, or CNA for short, and made her a nanny for her son and daughter. The woman was paired up with Joann, and the moment that she met her client, the woman would be an extended part of Joann's family. It was from that time as a nanny where this woman would be introduced to a friend of Hank, Joann's husband, who was in the same dirt bike club as him. This meeting would spark a friendship, and after the woman left the Stankiewicz family to obtain her New Jersey CNA license, it would also spark a romance culminating in a marriage and 3 children. The middle child of the couple, a son in his 8th year of life, began to struggle with his education. His mother noticed and approached Joann, since she was the godmother of the middle son, and because of her status as the superintendent of schools in East Brunswick, she began to look for a means of getting the boy a proper education. Fortunately, she had various contacts, and they told her about a school for special needs children, and soon enough, as the boy turned 9, he was enrolled at the Young Adolescent Learning Experience School in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. But overall, she helped this boy, her godson, and he became a man who would do great things in his life. The couple that Joann knew, they were my parents, Mary Elizabeth Funk and John Joseph Wallazek. My name is John Philip Wallazek, and I was that boy. I may be your godson, but I was also a student. Just like you and everyone else sitting in this auditorium, the very auditorium named after her. Joann taught you everything you need to know the difference between right and wrong, to understand good from bad, and to be sociable as opposed to being lonely. Dr. Joann Magistro Stankiewicz's legacy would not only be with her family, but through the students who were taught by her, the colleagues in East Brunswick School Board of Education who admired her work, and the East Brunswick School District. But even though I'm not here tonight in person, I left this video to tell this story, to show that my voice and my likeness is here, to honor my godmother's life, to tell you all to not let her passing make you feel down, but to honor her memory. Because that's what Joann wanted from her friends, family, colleagues, and students. She gave the next generation a chance.
One of Joann's greatest gifts to her staff was how much she loved us, and we all knew it. She was so selfless with her mentoring, and she had this incredible ability to decide where people belonged in what roles, even if they didn't know it yet. And our next speaker is one of the best examples of that, retired director Trish LaDuca.
So, Danny, that was the perfect introduction. Joann would talk about and Danny forgets this sometimes, and I would have to remind Joann, but Danny and I both interviewed for the job that Danny ended up getting. And then along came a job for me that was really perfect. And I'm just going to read what I have here because that's the only way I'll make it through this. So I really appreciate this opportunity to talk about my boss, my mentor, and my dear friend Joann. It goes without saying that everyone here has heartfelt memories of her. It is an honor and a privilege for me to be able to share some of my fondest memories of our amazing friend and colleague. They are sure to be similar to yours. Taking on the role of Director of Community Relations and Programs and working so closely with Joann changed my world. Knowing and meeting the needs of the community was super important to Joann, and it was my pleasure to help with that. There were a lot of meetings throughout the community, She really felt like it was important to know every single area of the community, not just the 11 schools and the administration building, which she knew very well, but every single segment of the community. So there was a lot of meetings. Among them were weekly central office meetings, monthly meetings with East Brunswick seniors, the PTA presidents, the East Brunswick Education Foundation, Rotary Club, the Chinese school, school safety and security meetings, which I'm sure Austin will talk about, and of course there were the bi-weekly Board of Education meetings. Often after evening meetings, and Danny's going to smile at this one, we would be a bit wound up, so we would go back to the office to get a little more work done and debrief. At some point, very often it was after midnight, I would go into the boss's office, sit in front of her at her desk, put my feet up, and say, it's time to go home, and that I was not leaving until she did. No matter how late that might have been, myself and our 2 admins would get to the office between 7 and 7:30 the next morning because we knew that Joanne would be right behind us with her usual greeting. Good morning, my little chickadees. And we would dive into what would be another busy day. One of my favorite times to talk about was, the number of hours that she worked is a story about when the first day of school was coming. It was a couple days away, and there was no contract with the EBEA. And, that was not what Joanne wanted. That wouldn't work for her. So there was a all-night negotiations meeting. And I left the office probably at like 8 o'clock or something like that and came in the next morning. All the cars were still there that were there when I left, and Joanne was in the same suit that she had on the day before. In other words, they had negotiated all night, and there she was going in to speak to the brand new class of new teachers on that day. No sleep. Same suit she had on the day before, but she looked wonderful and gave an amazing talk to the latest class of teachers. So relatively speaking, when one considers the number of years Joanne spent in the district, I entered rather late. Whatever the mission, Joanne's approach when planning and executing a new project or program was the same. First and foremost, the focus would be on the rollout. She'd always say, have you thought about the rollout? Anyway, we had to think about what the impact would mean for every one of the various constituencies involved. Have we included everyone who should be included? Then came the hard work to get the job done. Finally, there would be a short celebration, and then it would be on to the next initiative. There are many examples of this, but the most memorable was the venture that culminated with the completion of 3 nearly new schools, Central and Lawrenceburg Elementary Schools and Hammarskjold Middle School. The goal was to bring the students back to their home schools, have a state-of-the-art middle school, and decrease class size. The community was invited to join an ad hoc committee. 80 people showed an interest, and no one was turned away. At the beginning, there were a good number of people who were totally against spending money for this. But after many meetings and tours, when it came time to selling this idea to the rest of the community, we had nearly 80 foot soldiers available to help us get out the vote to pass a referendum to reach the goal. From beginning to end, 2.5 to 3 years went by. It was a phenomenal endeavor to be a part of. Joanne definitely had a list of projects that she wanted to get done before she retired. Among other successful initiatives were a new memorial school following a devastating fire, adding on to the high school, implementing all-day kindergarten, and more. As she checked them off her list, Joanne didn't just talk the talk, she absolutely walked the walk. When she talked about bringing our schools into the 21st century and that it was for the kids, she meant it. And the district mantra, excellence in academics, athletics, and the arts, each of those were equally important, as is evidenced by this beautiful facility, the Dr. Ann Magistro Performing Arts Center. Then there was the Doug Tye Athletic Field and the school improvements already mentioned. My most favorite memories involve those times when Joanne and I might be driving between schools or traveling to meetings. She would share some of the history of life in the EB schools and the people that were there before me. I have Joanne's mass card in the mirror in our bedroom, and several times a day, just like I do with my mom and the other special people in my life, I blow her a kiss and thank her for the things she taught me. Every day I think about Hank and wonder how he is doing without his life partner. I am so glad that they stayed close to Liz and Henry. I love hearing about Liz, who seems to be following in her mom's footsteps, first a teacher, now a guidance counselor. Will her next step be a school or district administrator? Henry and Jenna, you made one of Joanne's dreams come true when Sierra entered this world. She so wanted to be a grandma, and a proud grandma she was. Joanne knew that I preferred to avoid Facebook, so every few days she would text me a picture of our now retired colleagues to catch me up on what they were up to. I will definitely miss that and may have to succumb to joining the book myself. When I received a note from Liz asking me to speak at this evening's celebration of life for Joanne, among other heartwarming things, Liz thanked me for being such a special person in Joanne's life. I believe that I am the true winner in terms of our relationship, and for that, I will be forever grateful.
Next, we welcome to the podium our wonderful high school principal, Dr. Michael Vanella.
Good evening, and it's so beautiful to see everybody here to celebrate Dr. Ann Magistro. It's just so symbolic of all the lives that she's touched in such a positive manner. I'm humbled and grateful to be part of this evening and to celebrate the incredible life of Joanne. I would like to share with you the long-lasting impact Joanne had on her administrative team. To the administrative team, Joanne was a leader and a role model. She made us feel valued and challenged us to be better educational leaders and people. Sure, we all know Joanne was a visionary leader to help EB Public Schools become a blue ribbon district of excellence. The astonishing awards are just part of her legacy, but even more impressive was the human way she led the team in achieving these amazing accomplishments. Joanne always had a finger on the pulse of what was happening in all schools and generally cared about the students and staff. When visiting, it was the norm for Joanne to stop and talk to staff in such a genuine manner. Joanne knew and cared for her staff. And of course, she would always stop into the classroom to see the kids. Joanne would pull up a chair and engage with the students. There was an energy in the building when Joanne was present. To say Joanne was a mentor to many is truly an understatement. I know I speak for many of my colleagues. Joanne was on speed dial. It did not matter if you were a current or past EB employee. We all came calling for Joanne's advice, no matter how big or small the issue was. Joanne was there to listen and keep it real. Personally, I called her for advice on many occasions. I can remember contemplating accepting the high school principal job. I had just moved an hour away and had 3 young kids and knew how demanding the job was. Plus, my wife and I had just booked that all-important family trip to Disney in September. But Joanne never pressured and always asked the right questions for me to reflect upon. In fact, she advised me on how important family time is and to take the trip and the job. Joanne valued people she worked with and understood a happy member of the team was a productive member of the team. Joanne always made us feel like we were part of the EB family. I can still remember the late August administrators meeting in preparation for the new year. 2 things we could always count on. First, she always had us laser focused on what was best for kids. And second, she had us take the time to sit outside in our beach chairs, eat together, and spend time getting to know one another. Joanne generally cared for her leadership team professionally and personally. As you may surmise, Joanne had a profound impact on our administrative team and myself. We all learned so much from her, too much for one speech to cover. So let me just share some items that I try to emulate in my dealings with Joanne. First, do what's best for kids, period. That's why we're here. Second, it's Maslow before Bloom. Before you can reach an individual's mind, they need to know you care. Third, treat people with dignity and respect all the time. Take time to know and understand the people that you work with. And being a leader is about putting others first and mentoring them for success. And finally, meet challenges head on. Get all the facts, collaborate with the right people, get them on board, and make calculated, data-driven decisions. And that's what she did. In closing, I'd like to start by sharing a quote. Memories are the architecture of our identity. Hank, Liz, Henry, my identity and those of the lives Joanne touched have been changed forever. Please know her fingerprints have not faded on the lives she has touched. Joanne was an amazing visionary leader and person. Even more impressive was her ability to be a servant leader. Joanne used life as a gift and took it on as her responsibility to give back to others so they could be successful. And give back she did. Yes, her name is on the wall of this beautiful facility we're sitting in. But even more importantly are the beautiful memories she carved out in all of our hearts. Hank, Liz, and Henry, thank you for allowing me to celebrate the lasting impact Joanne had on me and so many others that worked with her. Thank you.
Joanne's relationships were so far-reaching, as you've heard, and the community connections were strong. And here tonight, we welcome Austin Cossack, our township's emergency management coordinator, to share some of his feelings.
Good evening. What a good-looking crowd. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your mother, your wife, with us, because it was a share. It was a big share. It's an honor for me to be here. Probably my top 5 honors, so I appreciate you asking me to speak a few words. So, I'm going to go over the relationship with Joanne. It's a long story, but I'm going to make it short. But I always remember the mind can absorb as much the butt can endure. So I ask everybody, please stand up. Please stand up. Okay, good. John? The man behind the curtain? We're getting there. Look on the side. We have any volume? No volume. Okay. Well, you know how the song goes, right? Hands up, baby, give me your heart, give me your heart. So, you can all sit down. But that was my introduction. You all know the song? You kind of know how the song goes, right? So I have to ask for apologies up front. I never heard of a celebration of life until Liz reached out for me, and anything to honor Joanne would be absolutely. So what does one do when you don't know? You research. So I go to Google, like everybody else, and go to YouTube, go to TikTok, and what a wide range from frat parties, or maybe a state funeral at St. Patrick's. What do? I want to make this appropriate. So the Hands Up song was something that brought Joanne and I together. If you all recall, 1999 in April, you had the massacre at Columbine. Joanne, as the superintendent, went to a seminar, heard, hey, you should meet your local officials before it happens, not when it happens. So I get a phone call at my office. The assistant superintendent of East Brunswick wants to talk to you. I'm like, ooh, what did I do? Did I not bring back a library book? I graduated in '81. What are we doing here? So I talked to her, explained to me what she wants to do, and I'm like, thumbs up, let's do it. Let's sit down and let's talk. Fast forwarding of September of that year, on the 29th, East Brunswick had their first lockdown drill. September 30th, what's the headline? Front page of the home news, the Sentinel, hands up. That's all they covered, was the children walking out with their hands up. And boy, she took a lot of heat, right? It was a rough time. She stood her ground. And boy, did she stand her ground. Moving along, she developed a plan with all the services to create a lockdown security plan that became a state model for all the public schools, drifted out into the private school sector, and then crossed state lines. So I can comfortably say the impact and the vision that Joanne had will save millions of lives through the generations. Because she developed, on the educational side, dovetailed it with the public safety side to have a robust security. It was near and dear to her heart. She worried about the children, but they couldn't have a good education system if they weren't in a safe school. And she showed that visionary. During Joanne's life, we all know she dropped some seeds. And your tears will water those seeds, and everything will blossom. Everything will blossom. That's the woman she was. Her security mindset and her security vision came full circle only a week ago in this very room, filled, the whole bottom bowl was filled with about 500 law enforcement and educators. And the seminar that was given was from the chief of police from Sandy Hook of December 2012. The chief at the time was a sergeant, and he was one of the first responders to the school. He explained here over 3 hours on what took place and what worked and what didn't work. That was only 7 months prior to Joanne's retirement. And now we're only a week away, and after we talked and said, wow, what they did in 2012, Joanne had the vision in 1999. And what they did there, and they learned on their lessons, we were doing for 14 years here because of Joanne. So clearly, her impact has made lives being saved, people being trained. She left a legacy in the security and safety end, and those seeds that she dropped, that blossomed. You have it with Paul and Kevin and Lou, that have taken what she has done and moved it to the next level. And that we need to be grateful for. She loved children, she loved this district, loved the community, and wanted the community to be safe. And they were, and they are. Thanks to Joanne. She's a trailblazer, shattered the ceiling, pioneer. Everything you want is who she was, and still is. Still talk to her. She'll answer you. There's no doubt. She's in this room tonight. Yeah, the Bronx have what Ruth built. We have what Joanne built. That's what we have here. And it'll always be here. Just remember, she loves you. Love her. A great woman indeed. In emergency management, our planning is an emergency operations plan. In education, your plan are your lesson plans. In life, our plan is the Holy Bible. From Matthew chapter 22, verse 23, well done, good and faithful servant. Thank you, have a good night, and God bless you.
As much as Joanne loves all of us and her family, she'd be the first person to tell you that no matter how much work needs to be done, it's your family first. And now we're going to hear from one of her two greatest accomplishments, her daughter, Elizabeth Stankiewicz.
Before I start, I would like to take some time just to thank some amazing people who helped us to make this evening possible. Really, I'm just trying to take the time to collect myself before I get to the emotional stuff. So thank you to Dr. Valesky and his central office staff for helping us to reserve this iconic and super appropriate setting for the evening. Kathy Rowe McKenzie and the child nutrition team for helping to put together the refreshments. We will get there soon, I promise. Karen Keegan for being attentive and reaching out to me so often to be my sounding board. John McMenamin and his crew for putting together the techie stuff and working like champs behind the scenes. Michelle DeGrossa, Arvind Gopal, Adam Good, and our very talented students who put together the wonderful musical performances that helped represent my mom's love of the arts. She truly lived and breathed the arts, so having our students perform really means a lot to our family. Danny Ruggiero, Sylvia Rosenberg, and my other committee members who gave me direction because throwing an event of this magnitude was a little beyond our expertise. They were always Mom's forte. But because of their help, I feel like I can moonlight as an event planner now, so if anyone needs any events coming up, got you. Mary Walzak and Kelly McQuaid, who put together the beautiful slideshow that you will see in the cafeteria and on the side screens. My Churchill family and my friends for being my emotional support humans through the process of planning and preparing, and all friends of the family for checking in, and family, of course, on us and being supportive through this difficult time. Jack Levitt and the EBEF for putting together my mom's scholarship fund and for their continuous support, which you'll hear about in a few seconds. Dana Zimbicki and the EBEA, as well as the EBPSA, for their continuous support and helping to get the word out about our event. Christie's Florist for donating the beautiful floral arrangement on stage. Our wonderful students who volunteered their time to help direct guests and pass out programs. All of you for being here and sharing in the memories, and anyone who I may have forgotten, because this really took a village and I probably forgot someone, so thank you all. So just as I had two outfits for this evening, if you caught me in the beginning, I had two speeches as well, just in case I couldn't put on the long one. So this is my first speech. Thank you all for coming, but I'm gonna give it a try to do the actual one. Okay. So anyone who knows me knows that I live for comfort, as you might have seen in my first outfit this morning. Leggings, Vans, throw on a nice sweater, and we're good to go. I am not a pantsuit kind of gal, but anyone who knew my mom knew she practically paved the way for women in pantsuits in education. Because if men could wear suits and slacks to work, why couldn't women? So here I am, not only in a pantsuit, but in the pantsuit. Picture 23-year-old Liz, fresh out of teacher school, as I call it, setting out to interview for a teaching position in East Brunswick. No pressure. I asked my mom to take me shopping for my interview outfit as I eagerly hoped and prayed to start my career at Central School. Who are you interviewing with? She asked. The principal, Nicole Tibbetts, I think her name is. We need a pantsuit, she said. Oh, a what? So I walked into Nicole's office at Central in this very pantsuit that my mom picked out. And the first thing Nicole said to me, can you guess? love your suit. I never lived that moment down. My mom would bring it up at any convenient time. I like to joke that it was this lucky pantsuit that started my journey in education, but we all know I owe that credit to my mom. The rebellious, independent side of me wishes I could say that was the only instance where mother knew best, but we all know how wise Dr. Magistro was. Tonight you've heard some wonderful people share their experience and memories of knowing and working side by side with the amazing Dr. Magistro, especially how dedicated she was to this district and how she always had the backs of EB staff, students, and the community. She was fierce, she was brave, strong, funny. So I guess while Spider-Man wouldn't have been her first choice because she was terrified of spiders, she did possess many of the same qualities of a superhero. Now imagine that fierce, brave, strong, heroic, powerful girl boss as a mom. Like the members of this district, she always had our backs too. My brother and I weren't the easiest teenagers to raise, independent and rebellious, remember? We would joke with her about how this magnificent leader of such a massive district could have 2 kids who couldn't seem to stay out of trouble. But I'm going to spare you those details because I still work here. Even though through adulthood, I could always count on my mom to save the day. I remember attending a Halloween party with my best friend Kelly a couple of years ago. I was going through a really bad breakup at that time. I'm starting to remember it now. Not gonna lie, it took me a very long time to convince myself to go and that I needed this night to be out, have fun with friends, even though I really desperately wanted to stay home with my dog. The party went way past my bedtime. It was like 11 at night. I'm usually like an 8 o'clock, 9 o'clocker, and I get really cranky when I'm tired. So I really wanted to go home, but I didn't drive myself, and I didn't want to rush my friends away from having a good time. So I waited and waited just a little longer, and well, now it was past midnight. So late and so cranky, so I did what any 21st century 29-year-old would do. I opened up the Uber app, saw the price, closed it, and texted my mom. Of course, she was awake, because even though I no longer lived at home, she still waited up for my goodnight text to know that I was safe at home. Without skipping a beat, she asked where I was and said she would be right there. Well, I had no idea where I was. So resourceful me, instead of asking for the address, I sent her my location from my phone. She had no idea what it was or how to use it, but she threw on a robe over her pajamas and started her way to my location. And then her phone died. I started to panic because I could tell her phone died when my text stopped going through. And now I was worried that she would never find me or something would happen to her. So this woman, this remarkable leader, as you all knew her, this hero of a mom, stopped at a gas station for help without even an address to find me. I still to this day have no idea how she found me. I know Kelly remembers this. No idea how she found me, but she showed up and she was magical. That's the only explanation I have as to how she found me. Fierce, brave, and unstoppable when it came to me and my brother Henry. When we needed to be bailed out of a mess or two that we've made, she was there, even if it meant showing up at 2 a.m. in her robe and her slippers. And look at us now. My brother, a professor at Kane University, and me, a counselor at Churchill. And ironically enough, we both ended with degrees in fine arts. Shocking, right? From a mom who loved the arts. Dad, we know you had a monumental role in our upbringing, but tonight's about Mom, so we'll save those stories for the dinner table. Love you. As I exceeded my time for this speech, because I'm extra, I'd like to end with this. Many people have come up to me at work or around town to offer their condolences, offer a story or a fond memory of their own. Thank you. Some have kept a distance and eventually admitted that they just didn't know what to say. Me neither. But please hear me when I say this. Don't hold back from sharing your stories and your memories of my mom with me. It is those stories and those memories that keep her alive in my heart. I love to hear them, and I promise I can take it. I'm not made of glass. I am fierce and brave. I am strong. I'm pretty funny most days. After all, I am my mother's daughter.
And lastly, to close our celebration of Dr. Joann Magistro, we welcome Mr. Jack Levitt from the East Brunswick Education Foundation.
Good evening. As you've heard, I'm the president of the East Brunswick Education Foundation, but what many of you don't know is that before I became president of the foundation, I actually had an ill-fated run for the Board of Education. During my campaign, I had various events around town, and Trish LaDuca showed up at one of them. I had no idea who she was or why she was there, but I eventually figured it out because about a week later, I got an invitation to the superintendent's office. I felt like I was being summoned to the principal's office. I mean, I had heard of the legend of Dr. Magistro, but I hadn't actually met her. When I went to her office, she made me feel incredibly comfortable. She asked what my motivation was for running for the board, and I shared it. Then in the most charming manner, and in no uncertain terms, she told me exactly what it meant to be a board member in this district and what would be expected of me if I won for the board. Bottom line, you were in it not for your kids, not for somebody else's kids, but for all the kids. That's something I could be behind, but alas, it wasn't meant to be. Thanks to Trish, I found a new calling, the East Brunswick Education Foundation. And for those of you who don't know who we are a 501c3 nonprofit who raises money and gives it right back to the district in the form of grants for materials and programs not included in the school budget that will enhance and enrich the curriculum for the students in the East Brunswick schools. Fast forward after a couple of years, I had the honor of being elected president of the foundation. I now had the chance to work with Joann in a different capacity. She was the foundation's key partner. In fact, we made her a partner in excellence before I joined the foundation in 2004. And a little known fact is the Stankiewicz House is the only house that has 2 partner in excellence trophies because Hank was also one, and I got to present the award to him. Now, not that anybody should play favorites, but I think EBEF was Joann's favorite organization in town. And that accelerated our relationship from superintendent and candidate to superintendent and president to eventually friends. As president, I doubled down on what was already embedded in the foundation's culture, reinforcing to this day that it's not about any of our kids or our friends' kids, it's about all the kids. And anyone who comes to one of our meetings learns this very quickly from the way we conduct ourselves. Some don't come back, but I'm so proud of the ones who stay because we carry on this legacy. And just because Joann and I had a great relationship doesn't mean we agreed on everything. When the district had budget cuts, she wanted the foundation to help out a little bit, and we didn't totally see eye to eye on how, but it was always done with the utmost respect for each other. There are other times that we each came around to see each other's point of view, even if it took a while. Which brings me to why I'm here. Oh, sorry, I had an opportunity to spend an evening with Joann just before she became sick. She never hesitated to tell me how proud she was of the work the foundation did and continues to do. It was a great conversation, which this is what brings me here tonight. Joann's love for the work we do and her legacy. EBEF has not one way, but for 2 ways for folks to contribute to Joann's legacy. First and foremost, the Stankiewicz family reached out and asked us to create a fund for the Dr. Joann Magistro Memorial Scholarship. The Dr. Joann Magistro Memorial Scholarship was established in 2023 by the EBEF in memory of Dr. Joann Magistro, Superintendent of East Brunswick Public Schools from 2003 to 2013. All who knew Dr. Magistro knew that she was a dedicated educator and a champion for all children who strived to do what was best for students first and our staff second, always keeping the community as a whole in mind. Dr. Magistro will always be remembered for her legacy that spanned 42 years in East Brunswick and as an educator, a leader, and a pillar in the school community. A scholarship, amount to be determined later, will be awarded to an outstanding graduate of East Brunswick High School who will be continuing his or her education at a college, university, trade school, technical school, or other institution of higher learning. To apply for the scholarship, a student must complete an application accompanied by a short essay, 500 words max, entitled "A Legacy of My Own." Included in this essay should be a description of how the student has excelled in academics, athletics, and/or the arts, and how being a member of the East Brunswick community has helped shape a legacy of their own. Letter of reference is also required from somebody other than in their own family, which makes a lot of sense. The application will be submitted, and the family will announce a winner later in the year, and it will be presented at Senior Award Night. Secondly, some past administrators in the district came up with the idea of the Ann Magistro Leadership Grant. To support the work of the East Brunswick administrative team members in supporting the development of the whole child through their work with teachers, parents, and students. Details open to any member of the East Brunswick administrative team, principals, vice principals, supervisors, directors, central office administration. Requirement is that the funds must support the pilot of an innovative program that, when implemented with teachers or parents, provides students with support for social emotional learning, exposure to innovative programs in the arts, academics, or athletics, coaching or professional learning for colleagues, and/or builds community for their schools or subject area. What better way to honor Joanne's memory in this very facility named after her than to contribute to two causes she was passionate about: educating children and providing our teachers and administrators with the best tools to do so. How can you do this, you might ask? You can just go to our website, www.ebef.org. Have a great evening.